You ready? Where do you want to start?
Well, I think we start with the meme coins. The ones that I have heard, I mean, you've got the dog meme coins.
Right.
That's kind of, that's not as interesting. What's
Yeah.
funny are the Elizabeth Warren and the Biden meme coins.
These are new.
These are relatively new, like within the last month.
Okay.
It's not called Biden, it's called Boden. Boden.
Good.
And Elizabeth Warren's coin is called Horn.
Good.
It's WHOREN. And I think they're up like 900% or more, or like 90,000%. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And I find myself being like, should I be playing in those? And then I'm like, no, there's no reason to be playing in those. I should just, laugh at the guys that do play in that. And that's good for them. That's just not, I can appreciate from a distance.
There's nothing about these coins that is anything other than a meme. They're not like, I know last year there was a lot of talk of like, oh, if you just follow Elizabeth Warren's investments, like you'll be super rich because she has all the insight.
That's Pelosi's investments.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the reason, well, what's crazy about this, Elizabeth Warren creates this army against crypto.
Mm-hmm. Well,
I saw something on Twitter that showed that Coinbase is actually making it possible to buy this meme coin.
That's great.
You don't really see Coinbase getting into meme coins.
Yeah, you can't make that up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how much Coinbase dislikes Elizabeth Warren.
Wow. Brian Armstrong for the win. Love that guy.
I mean, she had it coming, right? Like,
I was talking with someone here in the office the other day, and I kind of think maybe it's worth discussing like the comment they made. They actually started a token and were involved in a project here locally, and they said, yeah, after you get past like the top 10 or so exchanges, everything else is just not dishonest or illegal, but just all over the place, right?
Yeah.
Like it really is the Wild West. And even when you look at the top 10 exchanges, issues with Binance, issues with some of the other ones, like it's wild how in the world of crypto exchanges, listings, whatever, Coinbase really is sort of like the gold standard.
Yes, Coinbase is the gold standard. And what I was finding fascinating was I was going to CoinMarketCap, and that's the place where it lists all the coins.
Yep.
And I looked at the top 500 coins, and the 500th coin is still worth like $100 million market cap, and you've never heard of it.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, how did it get to 100 million? Somebody had to have made a ton of money to get to 100 million. And it just kind of blew my mind of like how many garbage coins there are that are making people a ton of money.
Yeah. Pepe.
And it's all about survivorship bias. You only hear the stories of the people making a ton of money. Right. And so then you think of like, why not me?
Right.
And it's just not a game. It's hard to explain, but I wouldn't recommend playing it.
Right.
In terms of news this week, I woke up Monday morning and I looked at my phone. First words out of my mouth, I can't really say on camera, but let's just say I said, damn. And my wife woke up and was like, what's going on? I was like, a Bitcoin just went up to 73,000. Oh, it was at 70 then when I fell asleep. And the results were Michael Saylor just bought another $800 million of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And you're like, when is this guy going to stop?
He's not. Why would he in the next 5 years? Like, it's a long term, right?
Yeah. I mean, he's saying that he's playing a 100-year game, which is wild. Like, he's playing a game that nobody else is playing.
Yeah.
He's getting to 1% of all the Bitcoin to ever exist.
He'll own it.
He'll own it. His company will own it.
How does that compare to, because I thought I saw a number last week that BlackRock was approaching some of those numbers of like,
so there's this race between MicroStrategy and BlackRock. The difference is like BlackRock doesn't actually own the Bitcoin. It's just holding it on behalf of their customers. Okay. So they kind of, people are like, that's not a fair comparison because it's not actually BlackRock's Bitcoin.
Right.
but it is actually MicroStrategy.
Right.
And if you see what MicroStrategy, the stock, is doing, it's up, I want to say it's up 4x in the last 6 weeks
Wow.
from, I think it was like $300 or $400. It's now up to $1,600 in just, again, 4 weeks, 6 weeks. I don't own any MicroStrategy. My dad owns MicroStrategy, so I'm kind of helping him manage that position. And I was like, Dad, it's gone up 50% in a week. I think you just made like $500,000 in a week. I think you should take some profit.
Yeah.
And it's hard because you're like, I think it can keep going up, and you just never know. And so this has really been a good practice of like seeing how you can't time tick the top.
Mm-hmm.
You have to dollar cost average out the same way you dollar cost average in.
Mm-hmm.
You're never going to know the bottom. And so trying to do that just is not useful. And so if anyone's looking at like, how do you get out of position? You do it slowly, you do it programmatically, you have a plan beforehand, and you always keep a mood bag. You keep at least 10% for it to do crazy things.
If I was just starting to get into crypto, what at a high level is dollar cost averaging, and what are some tools or resources that I could use to actually start applying this to?
Yeah. So dollar cost averaging is basically you just have a set time that you're constantly, consistently buying a set amount, right? Like maybe you do $100 every week, or it's $100 every day, or whatever amount, but it's just a consistent basis, no matter what the price is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the easiest way is to do it through Coinbase. The problem, there isn't a great solution. I think also Swan Bitcoin may offer a solution.
Right.
But you're going to looking at paying a 2.5% fee. Like it isn't a cheap way to do it.
Right.
Unless you do it manually and do it every day, logging in. If you want to set and forget it, then expect to pay the 2.5%.
Yeah. So if I'm new, I can go create a Coinbase wallet. I can log in every day essentially and ignore the price and just buy a set amount of cryptocurrency. Right.
Yes.
And then on the flip side of that, and it's like, okay, I've made some money. I want to get out of this. I don't want to get sandwiched. I don't want to pay a bunch of fees, whatever. It's the opposite, right? I log in every day to wherever my wallet is, and I'm going to just be selling a set amount at a price that is,
Yeah, you have to get a system so that you're not caught up in the FOMO.
Right.
You read X or Twitter.
Yep.
And you read or listen to the interviews from Michael Saylor, and he's not selling for 100 years, and you're like, Bitcoin's never going to go down. And then you just get trapped. And then you have to weather a 50, 80% downturn.
Yeah.
That's painful.
Knock on wood.
When you are, you've met some of your goals. I read this tweet actually this week. It's like, if you've made life-changing money, change your life. Sell some of it and change your life.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's a good point. Like, I think a lot of people think like, oh, I can't sell because what if Bitcoin is, just keeps going up? And it's like, that's a fixed mindset that you think that Bitcoin's the only way that you can make money.
Right.
There's lots of other opportunities. I mean, if you want an example, I'm trying to remember what it was. It's like, oh yeah, natural gas. I'm not an expert in natural gas. Mm-hmm. But it's at a 52-week low. It's at a level of support that typically is the bottom.
Yeah.
And over the next year or two, looks like it could 4 to 10x, which is just like what Bitcoin did. So to think that there's not an opportunity to do something like what Bitcoin's doing is, right, I think, ignorant.
Yeah. Short-sighted.
Short-sighted.
The other thing I was going to ask you is, talking about like MicroStrategy and some of Michael Saylor's stuff, he has to say it's a 100-year investment, right? Like, how much of it do you think is core belief versus like, I don't want to say propaganda, but like just towing the line?
It is towing the line because he's not going to be around for 100 years. So like, how does he know that somebody else isn't going to sell it?
Yeah.
So I think that's a good question.
Yeah.
So I think you take it for a grain of salt. Like, he's a great, what's the word that you use? Like,
promoter
of Bitcoin. He's probably the best.
Yeah.
And Larry Fink from BlackRock is doing a great job himself. So all I can do right now is applaud them and thank them.
Yeah.
But I had a funny phone call this week from a friend of mine. He's like, he called me and said, hey, so I want to buy a Tesla with Bitcoin. I don't have to pay taxes on that, right? Like, because I'm just transferring it to somebody else, like that's like the best way to avoid paying taxes on my crypto gains. It's like, whoa.
Interesting tax strategy.
Yeah, interesting tax strategy. It's like, you're going to still have to pay taxes.
Yeah.
And it was just funny that they thought that that's how it works.
You just put the Bitcoin in, get a Tesla out.
Yeah. No taxes.
Give Uncle Sam the finger on the way to pick up your Tesla. Yeah, that's funny. Speaking of luminaries in the world of Bitcoin, maybe we shift to the case that I don't know if it wrapped up. But there's some news this week about who is Satoshi, the case that's taking place in the UK. I wonder if you could share some insights on that and maybe your take on what actually are they trying to accomplish with this.
Yeah, so the judge ruled this week that Craig Wright is not Satoshi.
What?
Which nobody is surprised. And the only one that's surprised is probably Craig Wright. I wouldn't be surprised if his attorneys aren't even surprised.
Yeah.
But one thing that I got thinking about as I was reading these headlines is like, you'd think that the genius behind Bitcoin, if he was really the genius behind Bitcoin, he'd have also the genius to prove that he is.
Right.
Or like to not make it so ambiguous.
Right.
And then so it's like obvious that Craig Wright isn't.
Yeah.
What's crazy is that he's been like, this case has somehow been going on. I remember this argument going on in 2017.
Yeah.
It's like 7 years later.
It's been a long time coming.
Isn't there, there's two guys out of Australia that they think are Satoshi, right?
There's probably a group of 5 people or so, right? That have at one point in time made claims to Satoshi. One of them is dead now.
Yeah. Hal Finney.
Yep. And
I don't even know if he made claim to it.
He never claimed it, which is why people think it was him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So there's, people making claims, people speculating. CIA is speculated to be a part of it.
Yeah.
It's
that would be a great plot twist.
What's the benefit of us not knowing who Satoshi is?
Yeah.
It actually is useful because 1, there's not a target on him.
Right.
2, if the person dies whenever there dies, that doesn't compromise or make people fearful that it's going to fail.
Yeah.
Like if Vitalik, the creator of Ethereum, if he dies, I think there would be a lot of concern about the potential success.
But maybe less than if, Elon Musk died in the success of Tesla, right? Because Ethereum is inherently decentralized.
True.
You know what I mean? So it's like there is fear, but at the same time, it's like the point in time in which they pass away is almost proof of concept for like the creators of this don't matter as much as the network.
The other thing is like, you think about Elon Musk and Tesla, like those two are so connected that people get so turned off by Tesla just because of Elon Musk.
Right. They buy and sell every tweet.
Yeah.
On the Tesla stock.
And they get almost religious either for it or against it. And so because we don't know, it can help not have so much bias in the thing itself.
Yeah. Going back to Craig Wright, because I have questions. I'm a casual observer, and I read the headlines. What was he actually trying to prove? Like, and it reminds me of the adage from the Facebook movie, which I love, which he says, if you would have invented Facebook, you would have invented Facebook, right? Yeah. Like if you wouldn't have to prove it if you had actually done it, you know what I mean? Because there would just be obvious evidence of it, right?
Yeah. I don't know. I can't grasp why, except for it's some ego. They're just trying to get some type of attention.
Like let's say in a hypothetical world, the judge rules, okay, you are Satoshi.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what?
Well, okay.
I think this is just total speculation.
Change your name, get a vanity plate. Like
it,
what?
It sounds like he felt like he should have say as to the future and positioning of where Bitcoin goes.
Okay.
which is totally antithetical to
Yeah.
the whole concept of Bitcoin.
Right.
So it doesn't make any sense.
That's wild. Are you familiar with any of the merits of this? Do you like
don't.
any evidence that he was presenting?
No.
What could it possibly have been? Here's the first blockchain transaction, time stamped, whatever.
Yeah,
that
I think
kind of
it's like
stuff.
transactions as well as like communications.
Yeah,
Um,
which is really speculative at best.
totally.
Okay.
It's just weird if he really wants to prove it, why didn't he give himself a back door?
Sure. There's great irony in the creator of Bitcoin potentially trying to prove it with like a screenshot of something. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like
created the blockchain, which has proof you don't have to trust anything. It's like,
exactly.
right. You're then forcing us to trust you.
Yeah. All right. So sell Craig Wright.
Sell Craig White.
Sell Craig Wright.
With those meme coins, are those still good investments or what's up?
Yeah, that's so. I think we are still to see meme coins to go absolutely bonkers, and it's just the normal transition. Bitcoin runs first, then Ethereum, then like the legitimate coins, and then meme coins. Like in 2021, the last coin to really pump was Dogecoin and SHIB and all of those.
Yeah.
Like when it's like just pandemonium of these meme coins skyrocketing, that's when you're like, okay, it's time to get out. And that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
We're just still early.
What was the first and the last meme coin you ever bought, and why?
The first meme coin was Dogecoin. Because it was like the only.
Yeah. It's like the OG.
It's the OG. That was what was around in
The
2017. The last one was probably Dogecoin. I still have some Dogecoin in my Coinbase. I actually didn't know. I forgot that I had bought it. It's doing pretty well.
So that's the first and the last Doge.
Yeah.
Do you think there will ever be utility around a meme coin?
Well, it sounds like Elon's attempting or threatening to make it as part of a payment in X.
Yeah.
So with X, there's also this, what is it, like a Grok?
Yeah, AI. It's an
Subscription
open AI. It's basically a chatbot via Twitter.
Yeah. And they have a coin, I think. Would they not go that route instead of Doge?
Yeah, there's also been the conversation of whether they're going to create their own coin.
Right.
But that's what, this week is what caused a big spike in the Doge price was Elon had some comment about it.
Yeah.
You never know.
Speaking,
Elon's always had a liking for Dogecoin.
Speaking of that, actually, it says here, Elon Musk says Tesla will enable Doge payments soon.
Oh, yeah. So Tesla could accept Doge payments.
Yeah. I assume that's the headline. Then.
Yeah. And Doge price skyrockets as Musk breaks silence on Dogecoin for Tesla payments.
What else? What else were we going to talk about?
Oh, we're going to talk about some big events happening in April. We are closing on like 4 weeks from the halving. Very exciting.
Mm-hmm.
There's an eclipse coming in less than 4 weeks, and people think that's going to be a big deal. So there are many, I want to say, you could say cosmic events. There are many just Bitcoin events.
Yeah.
There are things happening in the traditional markets. There's tax day, April 15th.
Will you go into some of that eclipse and how that relates?
Yeah,
to...
we'll talk about it next.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And so April is just looking to be a month of a lot of volatility.
Yeah.
Either up or down.
Yeah.
One of the guy follows, he is less convicted about price levels and more convicted about like timing.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, so he's designated that the eclipse will be a significant event, whether that's price moving up or price moving down. We don't know. He's just expecting that like a lot of, and he wasn't even saying it's like, he's not saying, oh, there's an eclipse. Here's what I expect is going to happen. It's more like based on all of my tools that I use to predict timing event,
Mm-hmm.
it's pointing to this date of April 8th or 11th. And so then he put it out to Twitter of like, these are what my timing is saying,
Mm-hmm.
what's going on that date. And one person's like, oh, big eclipse is happening that day. And there's like, oh, okay, well, that's seems like there's some convergence there.
Mm-hmm.
Might be a date we want to watch out for.
Okay.
So I'm putting that out there just
Okay.
to say of like, now let's wait and see what happens on April 8th and 11th, and we can then determine if we should continue to look at these solar events.
So you know me, I'm quite skeptical of this kind of stuff. I don't read horoscopes. I believe in capitalism. Pretty much that's it.
Yeah.
So when it comes to, I understand that the eclipses, the moon, that's going to impact waves. It's going to impact some other things with a surety. But how on earth does a lunar eclipse impact Bitcoin? Is that just hocus pocus, or what are we actually talking about?
I am not an astrology expert.
Right.
There are accounts on Twitter that are like, I trade all of my trades based on the astrology.
Okay.
And I tried to follow them, and it was like they're right just as often as anybody
Right.
using technical analysis.
Right.
It's about a 50% success rate.
Okay.
But it's right enough that you're like, you should just be aware
Right.
that it could have some influence. It does not determine, you can't, a lot of people say like new moons is a bottoming or a topping point.
Mm-hmm.
And again, they're right 50% of the time.
Right.
So what you do, and if this is again with any technical analysis indicator, whether you use the MACD or the RSI, again, they're right 50% of the time. What you try to find is convergence where similar, or the tools are pointing to a similar time frame. And that's basically what I'm just saying of like, who knows if it's actually the moon or the solar eclipse that is controlling it. It's more of like a lot of tools are pointing to these dates.
Okay. And potentially this is true with stocks, right? Like volatility in general is bad for the market, but an opportunity for trading and investing.
Yes.
Right. So like
Yes.
even if there's millions of people who buy into this volatility, it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy a little bit.
Yeah. So the way how I'm approaching this is if the crypto markets run really high up to that point, I'm like, that could be a selling point. But on the flip side, it could very well where the markets kind of not crash, but like don't go anywhere.
Off.
Yeah, cool off for the next 3 or 4 weeks. And that's kind of the pivoting point that then causes us to go the other direction. So it's more of a pivot from the trend that we've experienced up to that point.
I'm into that. Anything you want to add about the halving?
Yeah. So if you've noticed, if you've watched mining stocks, they've underperformed MicroStrategy. They've even underperformed Bitcoin, and people are like, what's going on? And it seems like there's a real fear around the halving and how that's going to affect revenues of these mining companies, because what's essentially happening is their revenue is going to get cut in half next month.
Yeah.
Why would that not put some concern and pressure, selling pressure on the miners? So it'll be interesting to see what actually plays out. I think that the fear is probably overstated, and they might be some good buying opportunities in miners right now due to that fear.
Yeah, it's funny because you go from like the sort of out there to the very practical of like what happens at the halving. Like maybe just talk to us about what happens at the halving and how that impacts, because this isn't theory. This is just what's going to happen.
This is what's going to happen. It's happened before, but basically I think it's targeted for April 19th or around that time. The block reward is legitimate, like seriously half of what it was the day before. And that's real. And so in order to get the same revenues, you need the price to double. And we've never had, what's fascinating about this is we've never had the price run up before the halving. The price has always run up after. And I'm not hearing anyone talk about basically the halving being priced in. Like that's what everybody was talking about in 2020 and in 2016.
Mhm.
And because I don't think that anybody's talking about it, I think it actually might be the case this time around, where I think we're going to see a massive run still within the next 4 weeks. And then what's going to be wild is you get a halving where there's half as many Bitcoin being mined every day, and the price isn't going up. I feel like people are underestimating a decline in price. I don't think anybody's expecting it. And I think that it's a real possibility for it. People think one direction. They only think one direction. They think it's always going to go up
Mhm.
or it's always going to go down. And they just have a hard time thinking that it can be both and that there's just different periods and cycles. That's what human nature is they think one directionally.